She told me I was the love of her life. She told him the exact same thing, word for word. I know because he showed me the texts. My name is Ryan, and this is the story of the woman who made me believe everything and meant none of it. Part 1. The man I was before her. I want to start before Vanessa because I think that matters. I think you need to understand who I was before her to understand how completely she took me apart. I was 28 years old. I had a good job in finance, a small apartment I was proud of, a group of friends I had known since college. I was not perfect. I had been in two serious relationships before, both of which ended quietly and without much damage. I was the kind of man who paid his bills on time, called his mother on Sundays, and genuinely believed that if you treated people with honesty and respect, they would do the same for you. I was, looking back, exactly the kind of man a woman like Vanessa looks for. She found me at a rooftop party in July. I was standing near the bar, half listening to a conversation I had no interest in, when I saw her across the terrace. She was standing near the edge with a glass of wine, looking out at the city like she owned every single light in it. Not arrogant, just completely, utterly at ease with herself in a way I had never seen up close before. She caught me looking, she smiled, and my brain, which had been functioning normally until that exact moment, stopped working entirely. We talked for 3 hours. Everyone else at that party ceased to exist. She asked questions that nobody had ever asked me before. Not surface questions, not small talk, but real questions. What did I actually want from my life? What was the last thing that made me genuinely afraid? What did I think happened after we died? I talked more honestly that night than I had in years. She texted me at midnight, 2 words, still thinking. I stared at my phone in my empty apartment and felt something I had not felt in a very long time. Like something was beginning, like the world had just quietly rearranged itself. Me too, I wrote back, and I meant it with everything I had. Part 2. The first 6 months. The first 6 months with Vanessa were the best of my life. I am not saying that dramatically. I am saying it as a plain, simple fact. She was attentive in a way that felt almost supernatural. She remembered every small thing I told her: the name of my first dog, the city where my grandmother grew up, the specific kind of pasta my mother used to make on Friday nights. She would bring these things up weeks later, casually, like she had been carrying them carefully all that time. She left handwritten notes in my jacket pockets. I would find them days after she had been at my apartment. Little things, funny observations, sometimes just a drawing of something that had made her think of me. I saved every single one of them in a box on my shelf. She showed up at my office once with lunch when I had mentioned in passing that I had a hard week ahead. She had not asked. She had just appeared, smiled that smile, and said, "You look like you needed this." I had never felt so known by another person. My best friend Derek met her after about a month. He was quiet afterward in a way that I noticed but did not address. Later that night, he sent me a message. "She's intense," he said. "In a good way," I replied. He took a while to respond. "Yeah, sure." I told myself he was just being protective. That is what best friends do. I moved on. My mother met Vanessa at a family dinner in October. Afterward, in the kitchen while we were doing dishes, she said something quietly. "She's very polished," my mother said. "She's great, right?" I said. My mother looked at me for a moment. "She's very polished," she said again. Same words, different tone. I chose not to hear the difference. Part 3. The phone. 7 months in, I noticed the phone. It was always face down. Every surface she put it on: the kitchen counter, the coffee table, the nightstand, face down, without thinking, like a reflex so automatic she did not even notice she was doing it. She said she had anxiety about notifications, that seeing the screen light up constantly made her feel overwhelmed, and she found it calming to simply not look. This seemed completely reasonable. I had read articles about people doing exactly this for their mental health. I believed her because she had never given me a reason not to, because everything else about her was so present and so attentive and so entirely focused on me when we were together that the idea of another world existing on that phone felt almost impossible. But the mind notices things even when you tell it not to. She would sometimes excuse herself to take calls in the other room. Work, she always said. Her boss was demanding, her clients were needy, the hours were irregular, and she apologized for it regularly, sometimes with such sincerity that I felt guilty for even noticing. There were weekends she could not see me, one or two a month, sometimes three. She was traveling for work, conferences, client meetings, team retreats. She worked in marketing for a mid sized company, and the schedule was genuinely unpredictable. I had met her colleagues at a work event in September. Everything had seemed normal. I did not check up on her. That was not who I was. I trusted the people I loved and I expected the same in return. That was not naivety. That was just the man I had always been. Part 4. The Moment I Could Not Explain. It was a Wednesday evening in February, about 8 months into our relationship. Vanessa was at my apartment. We had cooked dinner together. She was a genuinely good cook and she loved doing it, loved the process of it, and we were sitting on the couch afterward with a movie on that neither of us was really watching. Her phone buzzed on the cushion beside her. She picked it up immediately, faster than usual, glanced at the screen, and put it face down again. Her expression did not change. She did not miss a beat. But her hand stayed on the phone, flat on top of it, for the rest of the movie. I said nothing. I watched the film. I laughed at the right moments. I held her hand when she reached for mine. But something had moved in my chest. Something small and cold that I could not name and could not put back where it had come from. That night, after she had fallen asleep, I lay in the dark for a long time staring at the ceiling. I was not angry. I was not even suspicious. Not exactly. I was just aware. In a way I had not been before, like a light had been turned on in a room I had been walking through in the dark for months. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that the man I wanted to be did not go through his girlfriend's phone at 2 in the morning because of one strange moment on a couch. I was right about that last part. I did not touch her phone. But I did not go back to sleep either. Part 5. Derek. I told Derek about the phone moment 3 weeks later. We were at a bar on a Thursday night, the kind of quiet place where you can actually hear the person across from you, and I told him everything. The face down phone, the hand on top of it, the weekends she was unavailable, the calls in the other room. Derek listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. When I finished, he wrapped both hands around his glass and looked at me carefully. "How long has the phone thing been going on?" he asked. "Since the beginning, honestly," I said, "but I always just accepted the explanation." "And the weekends?" "One or two a month, sometimes three." He nodded slowly. "Ryan," he said, "I want to ask you something, and I need you to actually think about it before you answer." "Okay," I said. "Is there any part of you, any part at all, that already knows something is wrong?" I opened my mouth to say no, and then I closed it again, because the honest answer, the one I had been carefully not saying to myself for weeks, was yes. There was a part of me that knew, had known for a while, was simply refusing to go where the knowing led. "I don't want to be that guy," I said finally. "The paranoid, insecure guy who goes through his girlfriend's phone. There's a difference," Derek said quietly, "between being paranoid and paying attention." I drove home that night with his words sitting heavy in the passenger seat beside me. I did not do anything with them yet, but I stopped pretending they weren't there. Part 6. The Trip That Did Not Add Up. In March, Vanessa told me she was going to a conference in Chicago for 4 days. She showed me the booking confirmation on her laptop, hotel, flights, itinerary. Everything looked real. Everything looked exactly right. She left on a Thursday morning. I drove her to the airport. She kissed me at the departures entrance and told me she would miss me and that she loved me. I watched her walk through the doors with her suitcase and felt nothing but the ordinary, quiet sadness of missing someone you love. On Friday evening, I was at Derek's apartment watching a game when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't pick up. "Is this Ryan?" said the voice. Male, calm, slightly older than me, I thought. "Yes," I said. "Who is this?" "My name is Daniel," he said. "I think we need to talk. I think we're both dating the same woman." The room did not spin. There was no dramatic collapse. I just sat very still on Derek's couch, with the game still playing in the background, and felt the floor of my understanding shift slowly and completely beneath me. "Tell me everything," I said. Part 7. Daniel. Daniel was 34. He lived across the city. He had been with Vanessa. He called her Nessa, which was not a name I had ever heard her use, for 14 months, longer than me. He had found out through a receipt, a restaurant receipt, in the pocket of a jacket she had left at his apartment. A restaurant he had never been to with her. A date that corresponded to an evening she had told him she was with her sister. He had done what I had refused to do. He had looked, and what he found had led him, through several weeks of careful and painful investigation, to me. "She told me I was the love of her life," Daniel said. His voice was steady, but I could hear what was underneath it. "3 months ago, we were in bed on a Sunday morning, and she just said it out of nowhere. I was the love of her life." "She said the same thing to me," I said. "In November. Almost exactly the same." Silence on the line. "Word for word?" he asked. "Word for word," I said. Another silence. Longer this time. "She's in Chicago," I said. "A conference." "She's not in Chicago," Daniel said quietly. "She's at a spa resort 2 hours from the city. I found the booking in her email when she left her laptop open last week. I've been trying to decide what to do ever since." I looked across the room at Derek, who had muted the game and was watching me with his elbows on his knees. I held up one finger. "Give me a minute!" "How did you find me?" I asked Daniel. "Her second Instagram account," he said. "The one she thinks nobody knows about. You're in 3 of the photos. I did some searching." A second Instagram account. I had not known about a second Instagram account. I had not thought to look for one. "What do you want to do?" I asked him. He exhaled slowly. "I want the truth," he said. "That's all I want. Just the truth." "So do I said. We talked for 2 more hours. By the end of it, two strangers had become something I did not have a word for yet. Not friends exactly. Something more specific than that. Two men standing in the same wreckage, trying to figure out which way was out. Part 8. What we decided, Daniel and I met in person 2 days later. A coffee shop, neutral territory, a Sunday morning. I recognized him immediately from the photos Vanessa had posted on her real account, a tall man with steady eyes and the kind of face that looked like it had recently been through something. We shook hands. We sat down, and we talked like two people who had skipped every normal stage of getting to know each other and gone straight to something much deeper and much stranger. He showed me his texts from Vanessa. I showed him mine. The similarities were not just general, they were specific. Phrases that were identical, compliments that were word for word, entire paragraphs that she had clearly sent to both of us, sometimes within days of each other. It was not spontaneous, it was not impulsive, it was methodical, practiced, the kind of thing that takes effort and planning and a complete absence of guilt. "How does someone do this?" Daniel said at one point, looking at the two phones side by side on the table between us. "I don't know," I said, and I meant it. I genuinely did not know. We sat with that for a while. Then Daniel looked up. "So, what do we do now?" Part 9. The Confrontation. We decided together, calmly, carefully, without anger driving the decision, though the anger was there underneath everything, steady and quiet like an engine running in another room. Vanessa was coming back from her fake conference on Tuesday evening. I had offered to pick her up from the airport. She had said yes, of course, because as far as she knew, everything was exactly as she had left it. Daniel and I agreed that I would be the one to confront her. It made more sense. I was the one picking her up. I was the one she was expecting. Daniel would be nearby. We would call him after. I drove to the airport on Tuesday evening feeling something I had not expected to feel. Not rage, not heartbreak, something quieter and colder than both of those things. A kind of clarity that only comes when you have already processed the worst of something and come out the other side of it. She came through the arrivals gate with her suitcase, saw me, and her face did exactly what it always did. That smile, the real one, the one I had believed in completely for 9 months. "Hi, you," she said, and kissed me. "Hi," I said. We walked to the car. I put her suitcase in the trunk. She talked about the conference, details, anecdotes, the name of a restaurant where she had eaten the best pasta of her life. It was fluid and detailed and completely convincing. We drove for about 10 minutes. Then I said very quietly, "How was the spa resort?" The car went completely silent. Not the normal silence of someone thinking, the specific silence of someone whose entire internal system has just gone into emergency mode. "What?" she said. "The spa resort," I said. 2 hours from the city. That's where you actually were, right? I could feel her looking at me. I kept my eyes on the road. "Ryan, I know about Daniel," I said. 3 words, and the last 9 months rearranged themselves in the air between us like a deck of cards dropped from a great height. Part 10. What she said. She did not deny it. That surprised me more than anything. I had expected deflection, counter accusations, tears designed to shift the ground beneath my feet. I had seen enough of her emotional precision to know she was capable of all of it. Instead, she went quiet for a long moment, and then she said, "How long have you known?" "Long enough," I said. "Are you going to tell me it meant nothing?" I asked. "That you don't know how it happened? That you love me and him at the same time and you didn't know what to do?" She looked out the window. "Would it matter if I did?" "No," I said. "It wouldn't?" She turned back to me, and for just a moment, one single moment, something crossed her face that looked almost like the real her. Not the performance, not the precision. Something tired and exposed and genuinely sad. "I never meant to hurt you," she said. "I know you believe that," I said. "I think that might actually be the saddest part." I pulled up outside her apartment building. I got out of the car and put her suitcase on the sidewalk. She stood beside it, looking at me with an expression I had never seen on her before. "Ryan," she said. "Take care of yourself, Vanessa," I said. I got back in the car. I drove away. I did not look in the rearview mirror. Part 11. Daniel. I called Daniel from the parking lot of a gas station 2 miles away. He picked up on the first ring. "It's done," I said. He exhaled, long and slow like he had been holding it for days. "How do you feel?" he asked. I thought about it honestly. "Like something very heavy just got put down," I said. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, that's exactly it." We talked for an hour, sitting in our separate cars in separate parts of the city, two strangers who had been brought together by the most bizarre and painful of circumstances. By the end of the call, we had made plans to get a drink on Friday. That drink turned into a 3-hour conversation. That conversation turned into a genuine friendship that I did not see coming and could not have predicted, and which became, over the following months, one of the most important relationships of my life. Part 12. The months after. The grief came later. That surprised me too. In the immediate aftermath, I had been so focused on the logistics, the confrontation, the calls, the process of untangling 9 months of carefully constructed illusion, that I had not left much room for the actual loss of it. But it came. Of course it came. Not grief for Vanessa exactly, or not only for her, but grief for the version of her I had believed in, for the Sunday mornings and the handwritten notes and the feeling of being completely chosen by another person. Those things had been real to me even if they had not been real to her. The feeling does not become false just because the person was. I went to therapy. My therapist was a straightforward man named Dr. Reeves who had no plants in his office and got directly to the point, which suited me perfectly. "What do you think you're most angry about?" he asked in our second session. "That I didn't trust myself," I said immediately. I knew. Some part of me knew for months, and I kept talking myself out of it because I didn't want to be the kind of man who didn't trust the person he loved. "And what kind of man do you want to be now?" he asked. I thought about that for a long time. "The kind who trusts himself," I said, "and still believes in people, both things at once." He nodded. "That's a good answer," he said. Part 13. Who I became. 6 months after Vanessa, I was a different man. Not broken, not bitter. Different in the way that only real experience can make you different. Deeper in some places, quieter in others, more careful about what I called love, and more certain about what I actually wanted from it. I started running in the mornings, not for any particular reason, except that it gave me an hour every day that was entirely mine, with no noise and no performance required, just me and the road and whatever was happening in my head that needed space to breathe. I threw myself into work in a way I had not done in years, not to distract myself, but because I had energy again. The kind of energy that gets locked up when you are spending half your mental resources managing something that does not feel right. Daniel and I had become genuine friends by this point. We met for dinner every few weeks and talked about everything. The situation, yes, but also our lives, our histories, our ideas about things. He was 12 years older than me and had been through enough to have a perspective that I found genuinely useful. He made me laugh in a way that felt like relief. "Do you ever hear from her?" I asked him one evening over dinner, about 4 months after everything. "Once," he said. "She sent a message saying she was sorry and that she hoped I was okay." "Did you respond?" "No," he said. "What would I have said?" I nodded. "Same." Part 14. Emma. I met Emma on a Tuesday morning in October, about 7 months after Vanessa. I was at a bookshop, a small independent one near my office that I had started visiting on lunch breaks because it was quiet and smelled like paper and nobody expected anything from you. I was standing in the fiction section looking at the back of a novel when someone reached past me for the book directly next to it. "Sorry," she said. "That's probably the worst possible moment to reach across someone." "It's okay," I said. "Good choice, though." I nodded at the book she had picked up. She looked at it and then at me. "You've read it?" "Twice," I said. She tilted her head slightly. "Why twice?" And we were off. We talked for 40 minutes in the fiction aisle until a member of staff politely worked around us with a cart of returns, and we both realized we had completely forgotten where we were. Her name was Emma. She was 30 years old, worked as an architect, and had the kind of directness that I had learned to recognize as rare and valuable. She said what she thought. She asked what she wanted to know. She did not perform. I asked for her number before I went back to the office. She gave it to me, and then she said, "Just so you know, I'm not interested in anything complicated." "Neither am I said. "Not anymore." She looked at me for a moment like she was deciding something. Then she smiled. Not the calculated kind, just a real smile from a real person. I walked back to the office in the October sun feeling something I recognized from a long time ago. Not the intensity of those first weeks with Vanessa. Something quieter and more solid. something that felt like ground beneath my feet instead of air. Part 15. What Real Looks Like. Emma and I took it slowly. That was new for me. I had always moved fast in relationships, partly by nature and partly because intensity had always felt like proof of something. With Emma, I learned that slowness is not hesitation. It is just two people being careful with something that matters. She met Derek after 2 months. He called me the next day. "I like her," he said simply. "Yeah?" I said. "She looked me directly in the eye the whole time," he said. "You know how rare that is?" My mother met her at Christmas. Afterward, in the kitchen, she turned to me with a dish towel in her hands and said, "She's lovely, Ryan. Not polished. Lovely." I noticed the difference immediately. Emma knew about Vanessa. I had told her early, not everything at once, but honestly, over several conversations. She had listened without filling the silences with reassurances I hadn't asked for. When I finished, she had said, "That sounds like it was genuinely awful. I'm sorry it happened to you." No performance, no strategy, just one person acknowledging another person's pain. I had not realized until that moment how much I had needed exactly that. Part 16. What I Know Now. It has been 14 months since I drove away from Vanessa's apartment building and did not look in the rearview mirror. My life looks nothing like it did then, and I mean that in the fullest, most complete way possible. I am with Emma. We moved in together 3 months ago into an apartment with big windows and a kitchen she immediately claimed as her territory and a spare room I use as an office. It is imperfect and real and entirely ours. She leaves her shoes in the wrong place, and I forget to buy coffee, and we have disagreements about things that actually matter and work through them like two adults who respect each other. It is the most uncomplicated love I have ever known. And I say that understanding now that uncomplicated does not mean boring. It means safe. It means you can be fully yourself without calculating the risk of it. Daniel came to our housewarming. He brought wine and stayed until midnight and made Emma laugh so hard she had to sit down. Watching him across the room that evening, this man I would never have known without the most painful experience of my life, I felt something I can only describe as gratitude, the complicated kind, the kind that holds loss and gain at the same time. I think about Vanessa sometimes, less than I used to, not with anger anymore, mostly. Mostly with a kind of sad distance, the way you think about a storm that passed through and damaged things, but also, in the end, cleared the air completely. She was very good at what she did. I genuinely believe she did not fully understand the damage she caused. Not because she was stupid, she was one of the sharpest people I have ever met, but because you have to be able to see other people as fully real to understand how deeply you can hurt them. And I do not think she could do that. Not really. That is not my tragedy. That is hers. If you are a man who is reading this and something in it sounds familiar, the small inconsistencies you keep explaining away, the feeling in your chest you keep talking yourself out of, the part of you that already knows but is waiting for permission to say so, I want to tell you this. Trust yourself. You are not paranoid for paying attention. You are not weak for wanting honesty. You are not too much for expecting to be loved the way you love. The right person will not make you feel crazy for noticing things. The right person will not require you to shrink your instincts to fit the story they are telling you. The right person will simply be who they say they are consistently in the small moments and the large ones. I know that now because I found that person in a bookshop on a Tuesday in October. My name is Ryan. I was lied to by someone I loved completely, and I have never been more certain of who I am or what I want in my entire life. If this story hit you somewhere real, leave a comment below. Share it with someone who needs it. And if you are in the middle of your own version of this, hold on. The other side of it is better than you can currently imagine. I promise.